You're listening to the Business and Life Podcast, where 7 days a week, proven entrepreneurs share their success stories, failures, and give you true value on how you can build a great business and an awesome life. With your host, Michael Levis.
What is happening today, guys? I am stoked to have Michael Bungay Stanier on the show today. Michael is the founder of Box of Crayons. He's the author of the best-selling book, The Coaching Habit. He was a Rhodes Scholar and in 2019 was named the #1 thought leader in coaching. Before founding Box of Crayons, Michael held senior positions in the corporate consulting and agency worlds. He's lived and worked in Australia, the UK, the US, and Canada. All right, Michael, welcome to the show.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for being on. So tell our listeners something interesting about yourself and also where you're calling in from today.
I am calling in from Toronto, Canada, although I am Australian by birth. So through an accident of travel and marriage and other stuff that has me surviving Canadian winters on the down low. What's interesting about me? Well, it's so hard to say because it's so interested in the other person's eyes, but I'm best known for the books I write. And my most successful book is a book called The Coaching Habit, came out 4 years ago. And the story behind that is I spent 3 years trying to get it published, kept getting it turned down, self-published it, and it sold 750,000 copies so far.
Awesome. Congratulations on that, man. That's great.
Thank you. I feel very smug about it.
Oh, you should, man. I love that. It's kind of like, I love those stories about, and I hear those and I love that where you self-publish and you go and kick some ass. And I hear things about, no bank gave me any money. And then, that company goes and kicks out. I love that, man.
That moment where you kind of back yourself. Yep. It goes right back to the guy who went, listened to the Beatles and went, yeah, guitar music's on its way out. Like, you need to know that some people, when they're making their call, they're making a call as best they can from the position they're in, but their call isn't the truth. It's just what's right for them. It doesn't mean it's the truth about you. Absolutely.
And the name of that book again?
The Coaching Habit.
The Coaching Habit. And tell us a little bit about what you do. Tell us all about mbs.works.
Sure. So I'm best known for being a founder of a company called Box of Crayons, which is a learning and development company, training company that teaches people to be more coach-like in the work that they do. So our clients range from, Microsoft to Salesforce to, we've trained over 200,000 people around the world to be better coaches in their organizations.
Awesome.
mbs.works is my kind of personal company around that. And it's a combination of writing books and going out and giving keynote speeches. So, The Coaching Habit came out 29th of February, 2016, so on Leap Day, which I just think is a cool day to publish a book.
Yeah.
And my new book, The Advice Trap, which is a kind of companion book to that, came out on the 29th of February, 2020. So 4 years to the day, or on its first birthday, however you want to frame it.
Tell us a little bit about your focus right now currently on your business. What are you focusing on, The Advice Trap?
Yeah, it's about getting the word out for the Advice Trap and going. And so there's a couple of interesting things about it, Mike. Yeah. One is anytime you put out a new book or a new piece of intellectual property in the world, you've got to go, well, what's my ecosystem around that? The other cool thing or exciting thing for me at least is giving up being CEO of Box of Crayons some months ago and just the transition of, look, I was the founder and CEO of Box of Crayons for almost 20 years. Now I'm not. So what am I now? Because, one of the things that happens is if you're an entrepreneur, particularly, it's very easy to build an identity around the thing that you started and the thing that you ran.
Yeah.
And even with the best of intentions, you get entangled in that. I mean, when we started, before you hit record, you were like, so right, the website's Box of Crayons, right? And I'm like, well actually,
right.
If you've asked me that any time in the last 20 years, it would have been, yeah, absolutely. And actually now it's like, no, it's actually a bit different now.
Yeah, no, I think the identity piece is huge. I've had a company for 13 years, and even after the past, 10, I've been able to create, hence been able to do the podcast, but also very similar where the identity starts going away where I'm still the CEO. However, my role has really drastically changed. Yeah. And so I'm not working in it as much as I am on it, which is the goal, eventually, I think, for everybody, but it's still different. Like I have to fight myself to not go into deals and try to help with deals, right? Like, nope. Because if I do, I'm taking a step backwards here a little bit. I got to let everybody do what they got to do. But I get that on the identity side. And I think a lot of our listeners too are also get the identity kind of crisis of being able to either pivot or and do, or have the strength and excitement to do what you did and say, hey, you guys got this taken care of. Let me go and focus on my passions, which I'm sure that you did.
Yeah, that's right. It's also, one of the things that my new CEO and I have done, we worked on this pretty hard because founder transitions are notoriously tricky and fail more times than succeed. So I now talk to Shannon, my CEO, formally once a month. So I've gone from kind of being in
Nice.
it to going once a month, I hear what's going on. So we talked 10 days ago. She's like, so we've hired these 2 people. And I'm like, you've hired 2 people? And the first I'm hearing about it is over lunch with you. How did that happen? And then part of me is like, that is awesome that she has taken this and is running with it. And I'm doing really well in just being able to let go and to fight my urge to meddle, because the urge is there and it's strong, but it's part of what's required to transition like that, which is to have the discipline to say, if you're going to be CEO, what needs to be true for you to be able to do your job? And part of what needs to be true is for me to get the hell out of Dodge and allow her to do her job.
Yeah. And I want to have a follow-up on that, because I want to talk about you as well, Michael, as far as MBS works, but I also want to give our listeners some great value here, and maybe you can help on just what would you say maybe the main ingredient, if there's a combination of get it, Michael, but the main ingredient that allowed you to step away, to truly step away, and how long did that take? Was it a year, or was it kind of like, hey, we're starting to talk about the idea, and then it generally kind of just started going that route? Give us a little bit of feedback on what you thought, what was that got you to where you can be a step away CEO.
So there are a number of things involved in it. The first was a degree of self-awareness, which is I just looked at myself and I went, well, 2 things about me as CEO. One is I'm not that great a CEO. I mean, I am a great creative. I write good books. I give good talks. I generate content and product and solutions. I'm great at that. I know my strength. But the CEO piece, I'm okay at the visionary piece, but some of the stuff that's required to run a company, when it gets complicated, when you get to be a 7-8 figure company, there's just a lot of stuff going on. I don't know if you ever played a game. This is back in the day, a game called Civ 2. It's kind of like you start to build your world. You start off with a little square and you build it out and it becomes this thing. I love the start of Civ 2. So I'm building, I'm creating, and I'm exploring the edges. But at a certain point, it moves from building to management. And I'm like, that's not what I'm thrilled about. Secondly, so there's just self-awareness. Like, A, I'm not that great at being a CEO. B, I feel like I'm losing some of the spark around and missing some of the stuff that I am best, my genius work. Secondly, it's like, okay, I've got this woman on my team who I think has huge potential to be a great CEO. And we spent a year practicing. So we hired a coach. We hired a coach for 2 years as a transition coach. And we went, look, odds are against us working. So we need all the help we can. So we hired Jill, and Jill spent a year with us kind of setting it up, testing it out, managing my anxiety, managing Shannon's anxiety, trying to define the role, trying to work through, when this happens, how might we play this out? And, for instance, Shannon and I came up with, we took this from somebody gave us the idea, a decision-making tree about when do I get involved? And the metaphor is a tree. And a tree has twigs, branches, trunk, and root. For twig decisions, I will never know about them. For branch decisions, I may find out about them, but I have no input to them. For trunk decisions, Shannon will talk to me about them, but the decision lies with her. I'm allowed to have input, but I don't get to make the decision. And root decisions are my decisions to make as the founder and as the kind of chairman of the board. And so we worked really hard to figure out what root decisions are. And it turns out that almost nothing is a root decision. So she's going through the process now of, for instance, and this is kind of one of the cool things because she's reinventing the company under her leadership. She and the leadership team are reinventing the values of the company. Now, as the founder, there's nothing more personal than the values of your own company, because you say they're the company values, but in fact, they're your values. It's like, this is what I stand for. This is what I think is important. This is me transmitted into an organization. So for her to go, you know what, these values, they're not wrong, but they need to be rethought and reframed and redesigned so they work in this new company that I'm building. I'm like, damn, it feels like is that a root decision? Because that's really important.
Yep.
And that it's not, it's a trunk decision. It's like, my input's there, she wants to hear from it, but actually I'm like, so mostly I'm proud that she and the team are like, we can take this on and we feel we have permission to do it. And only partially am I traumatized. A little bit traumatized, but that's part of my job, is to have my support going, all right, you're going to get through this thing of somebody reinventing your child, your baby, because you're playing the bigger game, which is like, this company will win under her leadership. It wouldn't win under my leadership.
I think that's awesome. And I think what you mentioned before is a great takeaway for the listeners of being self-aware. Being self-aware and trying to dissect yourself in the position that you're in, whether you're CEO, COO, or starting a business and have a few people, is this the right position for me? Yeah. Right? Am I in the right position? Could the company be better off if I was in a different, taking a lateral move? Or again, if you're in that position where you've done it for 20 years, like Michael has the creative side and wants to be creative and has a passion to be creative, then how can you do that? And I think there's a great message there, that you're able to pivot and do what you want to do still and be excited and have a business that's running while you're still living the life that you want to live and still feeling that productivity level of life. Right. And that's exciting. Yeah, that's awesome.
And,
Good for you.
Part of where that leads to is that interesting question. You're like, so what's mbs.works?
Yeah.
And here's the truth of the matter is, I don't know yet. Now, I know that part it's the books and writing books and the success around that, and the books help fund the enterprise. And partly it's speaking, although, speaking inquiries have dropped off significantly since COVID-19 has swept through the planet and the like.
Yep.
But part of what I'm trying to do is, like, when you think that I've got 20 years of being a Box of Crayons person, I'm doing my utmost to try and not fill up my time with stuff to do, because I can do that easy. But I'm really trying to just let me have some space and see what starts emerging from, just as I resurface, as I decompress, as I look around and I see things from a different perspective, what starts showing up as the next thing for me. So I'm really trying to be patient rather than go, all right, man, got rid of Box of Crayons. What's next? What am I on to? What's the next adventure? I'm like, you know what? You've got time. Give it a little bit of time, because the longer you can hold your breath underwater, the more interesting a place you're going to pop up when you finally get up to take a breath.
What's happening, Life Nation? Michael Levis here. This is a time to do the right thing, not the profitable thing. I'm giving away COVID-19 business strategy sessions for free. I promise to give you my honest advice and coach you on a strategy that I feel would be best for the longevity of your business. I'm not asking you for your money, but in the interest of being able to help as many people as I can, I am asking you to be ready with your 1 to 2 specific questions so we can jump right into it. Go to michaellevis.com/coaching and simply schedule a call on my calendar. That's MIKEOLIVAS.com/coaching. I love that. It's a great analogy. And I resonate with that a lot, Michael. Like, I started this podcast because I love to hear stories and be inspired and ask questions and people people that I want to learn from, and also that I feel that our listeners would want to learn from and aspiring to current entrepreneurs. But I don't know where the hell it's going. I know I got to have massive patience, right? I know that I'm doing 7 days a week of intense, valuable content and people successful like yourself that are coming back and giving hopefully some great advice to those. But I just have a shitload of content and a lot of great ideas. And I know that I help other people from a coaching perspective. And also the speaking angle, you're right, is exciting to me as well. I got a book on the way, but when it's all said and done, I don't know, right? Like, it's just, let's see what happens with it. And I think that's the difference between those first 20 years and my 10, 11, 12 years now, and as being an entrepreneur, where you were consistently grinding on growth, revenues, P&Ls, and you start realizing, like, okay, it's nice to finally be able to have that angle of understanding that. And everyone listening too, is that the patience angle is so, I wish I knew that 10 years ago, right? Yeah. I probably had a much better, just less stressful, and someone told me to enjoy the journey versus the outcome. And understanding that patience was so important. Like, I, even if they did tell me, I wouldn't probably listen, but I get it.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the tricky thing. That whole, what would you tell yourself 10 years ago, 20 years ago? You're like, would I have listened? I would have listened.
You're right.
I remember one of my best friends going, okay, Michael, let me give you some advice. Focus. Just focus. If you focus, having the courage to focus will often pay off in terms of business success. Because if you try and do everything and you try and serve everybody, you do nothing and you serve nobody. And it's so hard to focus. It's not only hard because it means you actively saying, if I'm going to say yes to this, I must say no to that. And that means saying no to people and saying no to revenue and saying no to possibilities. But you're also like, what do I focus on? Like, I don't even know what the right thing is to pursue right now. But one of the things that's become clear as I grew Box of Crayons was the power of focus really mattered. I mean, when people used to ask us what we did, I say, we teach people to coach in 10 minutes or less. It's like a niche leadership skill. We're like coaching to everybody. We show you how to do it in a way that can be fast and effective. And they're like, okay, it's really clear. But it took us a long time, or longer than I would have wished, to got to that point of courage and focus around this is what we stand for. And I wish I'd done that a little faster than I did. But, I also am a person to say, look, you do the best you can in the space you're at the moment. And in retrospect, it all looks so bleedingly obvious, but, it's not.
What are you excited about right now in your business?
Well, partly I'm excited about not knowing what the hell's going on.
Yeah, I was going to say, I knew that. I kind of felt like I had that answer already, but yeah, I love it.
So Jim Collins, who wrote a book called Good to Great.
Oh, I love that book.
So he's written a series of books that kind of all have the similar title. So I'm not sure where this particular lesson comes from. But he talks about strategy. And he has a metaphor for how to figure out what to focus on. And he says it's about bullets and cannonballs. And he says this, look, you got to start off by firing bullets, because bullets are your cheap, no risk or little risk, little expense experiments to figure out what's out there. What do you have? What's your market? What can you offer? What are you excited about? And then when you figure out what your target actually is, because you don't really know when you start, that's when you commit and fire a cannonball. And he said, look, the problem with most people is they don't fire enough bullets. They fire they're tempted to fire their cannonball way too early. And firing bullets to figure out, well, what's the product I've got that resonates with the market? What's the business model I've got that is exciting? What do I actually get excited about? I mean, there's no point in having a product and a market and you're like, and I hate this stuff, it's killing me. That doesn't work either. And then he said his other thing is that sometimes people find the target, then they don't have the courage to fire the cannonball. It's just to go like, I'm going to go, I've got something here. What would it mean to be fully committed to this? And at the moment, I'm firing bullets. So, I'm starting a podcast. I'm starting to write. I'm starting video. I'm like you. I'm like playing around with content and playing around with collaboration and playing around with challenging stuff that I've done or not done in the past. But I'm like, it's bullets, Michael. You're just firing bullets at the moment. You don't have to get too worried about whether they hit or don't hit. You're just learning about yourself and learning about what's out there, so that when it becomes obvious what the cannonball is, you get to go, all right, I see it, I'm all in.
Right. Yeah. And the beauty part about that is that since you've done it, you're going to know exactly how to monetize that and build it into something that,
right.
If that is the end game, but realistically, even if it's just getting in front of people or getting a message out, you'll know how to do that from your time, of course, at Box of Crayons. And that's exciting for me too, knowing that. I think someone asked me once on a podcast, like, what is your biggest skill set, or how'd you learn how to do what you do? I forgot what the question was specifically. And I was like, I know that if I just lost it all, I'll be all right. I'll figure it out. Just because I've had to do it so many times, where that's the true skill set. It's not like, the money in the bank or the valuations of company. I feel like sometimes it's like, I'll figure it out. And I think a lot of times entrepreneurs, I hope that they're listening and are just saying like, okay, that will hopefully take some stress off of a lot of the stuff going on with the coronavirus right now as we're talking about this. Like, there's just businesses, even mine, my national group travel business, in very, very scary situation. Very scary. Like make or break half of the revenue is scary, if not more. And so again, I chose to do this podcast when I found out yesterday, and I'm doing this for 14 hours today, mainly because it makes me feel good. And my state of mind is going to be great tomorrow. Speaking to guys like you, Michael, being stoked on the fact that I'll figure it out. And it sucks. It's going to suck for a while, but you got to figure it out, right?
And my CEO and I we were talking today, and we're like, okay, this is a thing. It's the black swan thing. And the Talib Nassar who wrote the Black Swan is like, what's the only thing, you can never tell what your black swan is because it's utterly unpredictable until it shows up. So it's utterly unpredictable that, we'd be having this right now. What is utterly predictable is a black swan will show up. So you're like, okay, this was always going to happen. Something was going to come along and be disruptive.
Yeah, you're right.
First of all, hold the bigger perspective, which is there's lots of people who are dying. And whatever's happening to us, we're not dying. So bigger picture, let's remember that.
Yep.
Secondly, to use that old phrase, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, which is like there's an opportunity potentially here for your business to go, right, we will hurt, but what will this teach us and how will this help us evolve as a business? How will this help us become different and differentiated and more robust and more resilient for next time? So, there's potential in this moment whilst also being, vaguely terrifying at the same time.
100%. No, I definitely agree with that. And I think with opportunities or with these obstacles and crazy obstacles come opportunities, or you got to find how to turn these negatives into positives. And I think that's what great entrepreneurs out there can do. Why do you think, in your professional opinion, after 20 years plus of doing this in the entrepreneur game, why do you think a lot of them out there just decide to throw in the towel and just give up?
Well, I think they're tired.
Sure.
I mean, it's tiring, and one of the less articulated conversations and disciplines of being an entrepreneur is self-care, which is like most entrepreneurs I know, particularly ones who are trying to not just have their own business or a lifestyle business, but are trying to grow something bigger than themselves. They run pretty hard. And they hustle pretty hard because it takes a while to get the flywheel going. But if you keep going, I think I can keep doing this for X number of years. After a while, you're just like, I just need to lie down and sleep now. And I think there's a piece around that. I think there's also, I think in some ways comes back down to the bullets and cannonballs, which is I think often people are like, okay, and I haven't quite gone, right, this is it. This is the thing that takes the company to the next level. And I think that's part of it, which is a strategic focus. And then, one of the things that I've had to learn is you die without the right systems and the right structures. And, there's part of me goes, I want everything to be artisanal. I want everything to be handmade and run by myself and carved and, and have my fingerprint on it. And one of the things that I've really learned, and it would start with something like the classic E-Myth book, and then you go on to like Verne Harnish and Gazelles and Scaling Up, and you go, what those books are teaching small to medium-sized businesses is you got to have the strategy, you got to have the focus, but if you don't build structures, you just run out of puff. You just can't scale. You just can't do it all. It just gets too complex.
Yep.
And one of the things that saved us at Box of Crayons is actually having somebody coming along at a certain point and go, Michael, build systems or you die. And I'm like, okay, building systems. I'm not that good at it, but I can find people who are good at it, and I'll try and get out of the way.
I love that.
I think if you build systems, you're more likely to be around as an entrepreneur. If you're like, systems are good, but I just haven't quite got around to it yet. That's when you're like, and I now need to retire or just fold the business because it's too much.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And I think I think it took about a good 8 years, if not longer, to become a systems process guy. Yeah. Like so overly obsessed with SOP that. Great. Put that in there. Put that in there as you start going, right? Every conversation is like, that's a great idea. Let's actually put that in there. SOP it, process it, like exactly. put it into our systems. And then, we're talking and systems guys, if you're listening, if you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a current one from a smaller business or a small business that feels like you're stuck into it. I think the systems really high level is just making sure that what Michael just said is like, build a system like you died, right? Like if you were not there anymore, how would it run? And, right. And the valuation of a company, for example, Box of Crayons valuation probably went a lot higher because Michael's not in it.
Yeah, I'm redundant.
100%.
Like I've worked so hard to become utterly redundant to Box of Crayons because if I'm not redundant, the pressure on me is endless. because there's always something that somebody's looking to me for and going, Michael, where's the thing? Mm-hmm. And secondly, it's unsellable. If I wanted to sell Box of Crayons, I'm like, I can't sell it if it's not freestanding from me. So you've got to build that structure.
That's right. If you're banking on your business and not a 401k, which all of us are as entrepreneurs, then you have to realize that your valuation, the best situation for you is being able to show when that due diligence comes and the time of that acquisition comes, that if Michael or if me, Mike Olivas, gets hit by a bus, can this company survive, and not only survive, but have the cookie cutter processes and systems in place that are continuously growing?
Honestly, I mean, one of the best things for my company would be for me to be hit by a bus. Because then it's become this tragic story about cut down in his prime, and who knows what could have happened. And he was the somebody of his time. And I mean, I don't want that to happen. I don't like Box of Crayons that much, but still.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, sometimes at least you get some good articles written, right? Yeah. Tell me about some parting advice here, Michael. You've had some great, some awesome stories, and thanks for all this advice. But if there was one piece of parting advice that you'd give to the aspiring entrepreneurs and current entrepreneurs out there, to the business and life listeners, what would that one piece of important parting advice be?
So the thing I champion in my work for mbs.works and for Box of Crayons is the power of curiosity. And what I would say to people is, you're probably not staying curious enough long enough. And there are 3 reasons why your advice giving is not as effective as you think it is. The first is this: you're often trying to solve the wrong problem, because you get seduced into thinking that the first challenge that shows up is the real challenge, and it almost never is. So I'd say, look, asking the question, what's the real challenge here for you, is a really powerful leadership move to say, let's have the discipline to figure out what the real issue is. As an entrepreneur, as a leader, think of changing what success looks like for you, not as the person who comes up with the answer, but the person who figures out what the problem is that we're looking to solve. The second thing is to realize, look, your advice actually isn't as good as you think it is. When you're the founder, you're like, no, I know everything because I'm Mike, or I'm Michael, I'm the founder. And actually, we all have cognitive biases that lead us to overrate our own opinion. And if you're trying to scale, you need to find ways of getting smarter people around you and getting their advice on the table, because we is always smarter than me. And the third piece is, even if you happen to know what the real problem is, and even if you happen to have a brilliant suggestion, you leaping in and being the guy or the gal who's providing the answer is not the appropriate act of leadership often enough, because in that act, you're making yourself critical and you're making others disempowered. So all of which to say is, like, it feels so good when you're the person they come to for the answers, and that's not scalable, and it's diminishing for yourself, for the business, and for the people that you lead. So stay curious longer.
I love that. Staying curious longer. Michael, thank you so much for your time. Where can people find you?
Yeah, mbs.works is a great place to go. That kind of gives you a doorway into finding the resources that in the Coaching Habit book, the Advice Trap book, finding out which is your advice monster and how to tame your own advice monster. So that's the best places to go.
Well, I really enjoyed it. I hope that you did as well. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Life Nation, you got to remember that in order for things to change, you must change. And in order for things to get better, you must get better. You just got better by hanging out with me, Michael Olivas, and the Business and Life Nation. So come back tomorrow, because I'm here dropping sound bombs 7 days a week, baby. If you'd like to subscribe, please do, so you can take action and execute. See you tomorrow.